Started with the Senate Subcommittee on Appropriations for Transportation. Let the record show that the Senate is here, Mr. Chairman, and ready to work. All rise.
All right.
Brandon Lamont Beach, the Honorable Senator, has arrived. Chairman Beach, the Super Bowl was in your old stomping grounds last night.
Great city.
Do you have anything you'd like to offer for the good of the order this morning?
No, just everything was great, successful, and nobody got hurt, and it was a success. And the food's great down there. If you've not been to New Orleans, make a trip down there. Good people, good fun, good music. If you'd have known me when I lived in New Orleans, you probably wouldn't have elected me to office, I can tell you that. I had a lot of fun.
Chairman Beach, we heard a rumor. You maybe tell. Is the House coming in at 1 o'clock today?
Yeah, 1 o'clock. We're here at 7 a.m.
Wow.
We're doing the people's business at 7 a.m. on Monday morning after a Super Bowl.
I think in the interest of your future road projects for Scythes, for your districts, I noticed that Russell McMurray and Janine Miller are in the room. Just notice the 4 senators that are here, ready to appropriate funding for road projects in the state. We will go ahead and get started. And first up, we have Spencer Moore. Spencer, you can come front and center. And who had you predicted was going to win the game? And be honest with us.
I absolutely was rooting for Philly only because it has so many Georgia Bulldogs on the team. Go Dogs.
Philadelphia Bulldogs. I'm glad to hear you say rooting for my. Our youngest daughter was born the year that I was elected, so she's 6 years old. And she asked me yesterday, and I probably need to change my parenting techniques, but she said, "Daddy, who are we voting for?" So everything is in a political framework for her. I said, "We're voting for the Bulldogs."
Well, good morning.
Floor is yours. Thanks for being here this morning.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Certainly thank you all for allowing us to come and talk a short while about DDS's budget. First of all, we're very, very gracious of the governor's recommendation. Appreciate the support that he's given us over the years. I think the department is doing very, very well. And what I'd like to do is just first start with a quick overview of some of the things that you may or may not be aware of that we like to highlight on the beginning of the presentation. And first, may or may not have known that we got 8.87 million valid license holders in our state, which is a significant number as that number continues to rise. But one of the numbers that's right above it is even more important. This is the slide, I think the third slide in your deck, is 99.91% of Georgians are Real ID compliant. That is very, very important. Many of you may have traveled. You'll go into an airport, you'll see TSA has displays out that indicates on May 7th, 2025, that folks without a Real ID won't be able to fly domestically. Just learned on last week that you got some states that are still less than 25% Real ID compliant. Georgia's 99.91%. And that number continues to climb each year. We're certainly happy about that. Georgia's well positioned in order for our credential holders to be able to get on those airplanes and also get into federal buildings. One other number I just wanted to point out for the committee is that number that's at the bottom, which is around 416,000 CDL drivers that we have in our state. Certainly happy that's a number that was more along the lines of 395,000 in January of last year. So we're continuing to see the number of CDL drivers in our state go up, and of course we know that is good for the economy and the things that we have in our state that need to go forward. The agency this morning has 3 simple requests. They are very straightforward, totaling $1,022,000. They can be found on page 2, line 122.1, 122.2, as well as 122.3. The first one that we'll address is the address verification technology that the agency is seeking to enhance. We currently have technology that is assisting us with this, but we're requesting $250,000 to help us to continue to improve it anymore. Since COVID, as an agency, we've tried to do everything that we can to provide not just convenience for the customer, but we certainly want to also provide security and authentication for those who are utilizing our service. So with that, we are asking again for $250,000. This address fraud identity technology that we hope to acquire will essentially give us the opportunity to not just know that the person that we're dealing with is the right person, but certainly that the address in which they're trying to use is a valid address, and it is one that we can follow and ensure that is legitimate.
Do you have details on what that two-factor authentication is? And can you kind of tell us is it when I go to apply for a license that the fraud would typically happen? What's the key?
What will happen in some cases is if I have your information on the dark web, and I attempt to do an online service, right? I want to create an account with DDS, go into that account, and then change, for example, a mailing address for where you might receive a new credential. You get that credential, or the fraudster could get it to go to a different address. At that point, once they have that address, they can also then apply for things like credit cards, which is typically the type of fraud that we're talking about and trying to prevent. What we now have is the ability for, if you are doing an online transaction, not only are we getting your information and requiring you to do multi-factor authentication, but we have a biometric solution that if you're doing it on a device, it requires you to show us your face. We can then compare that face against what we have on record to ensure that we're dealing with the right person.
So somebody would get my information, try to log in under my account, and then essentially get an ID or something shipped to their
for the
address
purposes of
Gotcha.
trying to commit fraud.
Okay.
And this again, as we continue to get more and more requests for online services, we want to do everything that we can to stay in front of those who are trying to do something nefarious. So that's what this request will help us with. As you can see in the chart, you'll note that we are getting more and more things that are coming online. And these are specifically address changes, types of transactions that are occurring. Our simple request is, again, to continue this technology that we currently have that helps us keep people's information safe. Next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, is a 122.2, which is a chatbot phase 3. We also call it as a voice bot because in this sense, it is an actual person that we call, it's intelligent AI, if you will, that we call George. So if you were able to call our contact center, you would, in many of the calls that come in to this number, you will hear what sounds like an individual. But it's actually intelligent conversational AI specific only to the information, for example, that we have on our website. Say a customer is calling, needs to find some information out quickly. This phase 3 will allow for us to, today we had to build that resource of responses. So we have people in the agency we're getting a question, we give that answer, we have to record that answer into the database so it can give the correct answer when it comes back. What we're hoping for is that in this new technology is to not just have the ability to record and answer and then, of course, have it play back to the customer, but have that conversational intelligent AI, which is a Microsoft product, help us answer those questions. I came to the agency in 2012. We had 55 call center agents then. We have, in 2025, 55 call center agents now. Without technology, we certainly can't keep up. This has, over the last several years, you've been able to give us funding for this product. This is an enhancement to keep this product and utilize it in a phase 3 format that helps us, again, meet the demands. DDS was one of, I believe, 5-6 agencies that were part of a state audit. In that audit, some of the recommendations were to have contact center technology that helps us answer these questions. So we're happy to bring this forward. In those charts, you can see the number of conversations that this chatbot is answering for us. Those FY23-24 numbers are real numbers, and you can compare that. For example, the bot in FY23 answered 2 million calls. Our contact center agents answered 754,437. So without it, we are certainly
Can you say that last number again?
754,437 in 23, 757,125 in 24. So the vast majority of our calls at this point are being answered with this technology assistance, and again, it's our goal to enhance that product. No questions on that?
I do have a couple of questions
Yes,
on
sir.
that. So what's the appropriation for the actual core level tech? Because this is essentially an enhancement to the feature. Is it still in that 125 range?
The full amount of that.
And are these services, are they flat fee? I know a lot of these AI, like online chatbots, are charging per unit, essentially.
This one I don't think is a per unit cost. It's an enterprise cost.
Okay.
It's an enterprise cost. We can get you the number of the initial. It was a request that we made a few years ago. This is the enhancements to that. This
is one time for you guys to upgrade?
This is a one-time increase for this ability. We have a maintenance fee that is already built in that we're already paying for.
Great.
Yes, sir. Next.
Just 1 second, Senator, again.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I think the best number I've got is Commissioner Moore's. He always is Johnny on the spot and helping my constituents. But I do have a question. When you have a chat bot, is there some kind of feedback on how well did we answer the question that somebody's looking for, or how frustrated they are when they get done talking to the chat bot?
There's no feedback, but one of the things we look at is what you see on the chart there. 62% of the calls that are coming into that bot are not being transferred, meaning that customer is getting the information that they need. So at least we know in 62% of the time that the person's being answered the first time. And you can opt out of the bot. You can opt out if you want a human. Again, that may be a longer. But what we're hoping to do with this technology that we're adding here is George, which is the AI technology, will be able to answer more questions without having to have us load the responses into the system. So that's what this is. In the original request in FY21, Mr. Chairman, was 600,000. Then we had a FY22, 125,000.
And I assume that's the 125 is an annual licensing fee?
Yes, it is. And the 527 in FY22 was phase 2, and 452 is phase 3.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Last slide that we have for you this morning is line item 122.3, and it's an investigations case management system. May or may not be aware that the agency has 13 sworn law enforcement investigators, as well as a director and a deputy. We, if fully staffed, would have 15. We have 2 vacancies that are currently in the process of being hired. Those folks actually investigate the types of cases that you see on the right hand of that chart. Very, very busy group. They have been working with a system since I've been there, and probably well before I was there, called Spillman. This system currently is at end of life. It does not support the ability for us to transition to the Gov Cloud, which is something that GTA has requested that we do with all of our systems. We hope by getting this new case management system, we can then, that would be the last footprint that we have as an agency up at the NADC. So we will be completely out of that, and all of our information would be into the Gov Cloud. We have an RFP that has been completed. We're not at the point of notice of award, and this is the amount that we're requesting in order to move that system from its current platform to a new platform. In this platform would be AWS GovCloud manageable as well as CGIS compliant, and give us the ability to work with the local prosecutors as well as state prosecutors that we work with in order to move these cases along. Again, this is a unit that's very small comparatively, but do a lot of work, not just with our agency and our individual cases, but we work with a lot of local law enforcement as well as state and federal law enforcement in identifying other types of crime that may occur. But these are specifically the types of things that this unit is working toward. So, Mr. Chairman, we have 3 requests: $250,000 for the address verification, $452,000 for the chatbot phase 3, and $320,000 for our investigation case management system. Certainly entertain any questions that the committee might have.
Chairman Beach on 4.
I got a comment. Number one, that 99% on real ID.
Yes, sir.
That's amazing.
Thank you, sir.
I don't know how you did that. Was it through education, or how'd you do that through?
Well, one of the
when some states are 25%.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. In many cases, I think a part of that goes to this body's requirement of it being mandatory for all citizens who come into our centers. Because if it wasn't mandatory, then we would probably be at a lower level. That's not the case in every state. In some states, you can go get a different non-Real ID compliant license, which is a problem. Because if in most of those states, people choose that lesser document versus in our state where you have to bring the documents to ensure that you are who you say that you are.
All right, last thing, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Moore, when I go up to my office up in Fulton County, your office,
Yes, sir.
it is great service.
Thank you.
And then you got, Dr. Ferdinand's got your tag off, so I can do my tag, I can do my license. Let me ask you one question. We up here get more calls about passports, and that's not our deal. That's a federal deal.
Yes, sir.
And people have to go all the way into the city of Atlanta. I think they got one office.
That's right.
Would we think about leasing an office to the U.S. government to do passports in some of your facilities, to where it could be, you could get your license tag, your driver's license, and a passport? It would be good, because I got to tell you, I know all of us up here, they think we're in Washington, and they
Yes, sir.
call us saying, hey, can you help me with my passport?
Absolutely. If we have footprint, in some cases that we do, we would certainly love to partner with that agency and provide that service. We partner with several other agencies, State Road and Tollway, to give out some toll passes in different centers. So we obviously are co-located with the Georgia State Patrol in some other locations. So absolutely, if we have space, we'd love to do that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank
See
you.
Any other questions? Senator Halpern, how are you today? So we're going to play a little game. We took bets earlier on who would be either here or late or not here at all. There are a couple members of the subcommittee not currently present. I'm going to tell you who they are, and you can predict who you think will be the next one to arrive. So not currently in attendance, it's Senator Tanya Anderson, Majority Leader Steve Gooch, and Senator Emanuel Jones. Let me turn your mic on, make sure this is on the record.
3. Seeing as all of the senators who are not present would want to be here,
Exactly.
I will predict, just because I know a little bit about a couple schedules, I'm gonna predict the Majority Leader Steve Gooch will come
Okay.
to this room next.
All right. Chairman Beach, what time do you think that will occur?
7:48.
Okay. Chairman Burns, would you like the over or the under on
take the
7:48? Under.
Under.
Burns is under. All right. And Senator Ginn, over or under on Gooch at 7:48?
I'm going to go for over. It's Monday. He went to the Super Bowl party.
And I'm going to make a bold prediction that every senator beats every House member into the Capitol this morning. So. Alan Poole, you are next up. Same question for you, by the way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Chair, I forgot already, it's just like my hair. It's short. I would agree with you. I think all the senators will be here before the House. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the opportunity, all the board members. I want to be,
Pull that microphone a little closer to you there, if you don't mind.
I want to be
turn you up.
brief as possible. I know you guys are busy. I want to bring your attention to line item 272, where the governor has graciously recommended $16,000. Just for your edification, when we left 7 MLK, our rent was about $95,000. Now that we had to relocate over to the Twin Towers, our rent is going up to $193,000. But I do appreciate the governor's recommendation. The next item I'd like to bring to your attention, line 272, regarding 3 employees. And let me just clarify by saying these 3 employees have been within 10 years, 8 to 10-year employees with the agency. And due to the fact that the federal government cut the 402 CP fundings, we had to find additional fundings so that we could continue those 3 employees. And you have that before you. So I'm gonna shift gears and let my finance director, Ms. Laura Bolander, explain the situation a little bit better than I can.
Good morning. So down here in the red, you'll see, can you hear me?
Yeah, let me
You'll
turn you on.
see-
Yes.
So you'll see the 3 positions that are in red at the bottom of your form. I went in and put their salary plus their fringe to give you the total amount for each employee, and then the grand total. And the governor's recommendation was for the 161, and then the House removed it. So we're here today to show you, the seriousness of these positions needing to be funded. When the CP fund source was deleted, there was 8 employees that were in that fund source. And we were able to relocate 5 of them into a federal fund source because what NHTSA's regulation states is if you deal with any of the grants, if you're doing any part of work in the grant, you can be funded out of that grant. Well, these particular positions, along with the 3 of us, we deal with every part of the agency. So every part of the agency falls under our fund source planning and administration, which comes from state funds. And whatever the state gives, then the federal government will match for dollar. So when we relocated 5 of the 8 positions, we still had these 3 positions. As you can see, an IT person deals with the entire agency. The second lady is our office manager. She deals with the entire agency. She's not tied to just one grant.
Oh, excuse me. We're going to pause the hearing for just a second for an important update. Welcome, leader. Good morning. I think it's important that you're a powerful, influential member of the General Assembly, and some people have more faith in you than others. And leading the charge in their belief is Senator Halpern, who predicted you'd be the next member of the committee to arrive. But then to my right over here, now only positionally, not politically to my right, I was going to say, correct. I'm going to ask you, actually, this question. So one of these senators predicted, by the way, Chairman Beach predicted a 7:48 arrival time for you, which you have bested by dozens of minutes. But one senator to my right took the over, and one took the under on that time. Who do you think had enough faith in you to take the under?
Dean Burns, Professor Burns, President Burns, and now Senator Burns, Congressman Burns is always good to me. That's right.
You are correct. You are correct.
Now my seatmate over here, I tried for 15 years to get him on the straight and narrow, and I can't do it.
Well, you were accurate in your guesses. Were you accurate in your Super Bowl prediction yesterday? Let me turn your microphone's been off.
I was pulling for the winning team.
Good.
So
Whoever it was.
that's right.
That sounds about right for you, Mr. Leader.
That's how you do your politics.
We watched you do that last November.
It's worked. It's worked. It's
Wait
worked
to see
so
who
far.
wins, and then it goes over to after
Party. Well, is that Chairman Beach? Your microphone is off.
This is going off track quick. He's the one that jumps to the after party victory parties. Remember?
Indeed. I will tell y'all this story. And sorry, if we're here at 7 in the morning, we're gonna have a little bit of fun.
I was outside. At
So the
7,
year
by
was
way.
2008, and I was at a celebration party, an election watch party for the soon-to-be lieutenant governor, who was an underdog in that race. Jeff Duncan was running against our good friend David Schaefer, and I was a newcomer. But the people here that had the sense were with the pro tem. I didn't have anything to lose, so I with my local guy, and so I was the only either elected or pseudo-elected official at the Duncan watch party until the results came in. And I had no clue who any of these personalities were. But when the results came in, we were at a hotel in Alpharetta, and the doors just like open and barreling through as if there's a cloud of dust, and Beach comes barreling through the door. I was with you the whole time, Duncan. I was with you. But he walked straight back to the war room, and that was one of my very first.
You've been with him ever since.
Indeed, one of my first encounters with you, Mr. Chairman Beach. So anyway, now let's get back to this because the House.
Can we do this again tomorrow morning?
No, this is a once-a-year opportunity. The House took this away from y'all. And they said that they did not have enough information. So was the information that they were lacking around the specifics? Did they express to you guys the details of the questions they had? Was it more so around the efficacy of these positions, or was it more so whether there was a way for you guys to, because what I'm hearing, if we could just shift these somewhere else and the feds pay for them, we were able to do that with 5. I assume that opportunity does not exist for these 3, is that?
Exactly. And
you guys have turned over every stone to ensure that that is not the case. What was it about the 5 that allowed you to do that we cannot do that with these 3?
Am I on? They're
are.
working with certain grants.
Great.
Road rage safety. I gave some examples. Road rage safety, paid media, where when I explain about the community programs funding source, it really was a catch-all where they were just putting all different types of employees in that catch-all. They were paying expenses through the catch-all. Everyone was doing it. All the states were doing it. And so NHTSA kind of wised up and says, we're getting rid of that. It needs to be more structured. You need to be in the category that you're working in. You need to be in that fund source.
In these 3 positions you've highlighted here being more office-wide, you're not able to essentially
Like the 3 of
prescribe
us,
Sure.
we're part of the executive role, and the executive role has to be paid through the state, planning and admin, because we deal with every area of the agency, and these 3 people also do that. And
Great.
when we had CP, we were able to put them over there, but now there's not a spot for them regulation-wise for us to put them, because we did try everything and moved who we could, where we could.
There was also a comment on here that the fringe rate that y'all used was just a little bit off. Are you aware of that note that they put in here?
No.
So we can circle up on this later, but it says there's an old inflated fringe rate of 69.11% versus the current of 67.614%.
Oh.
So just wanted to note that for you as well.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, I did go back and talk to Congressman Hitchens and explained it to him in a little further detail, and he's willing to go back with half of that percentage. And the $21 million, Mr. Chairman, that we receive from the federal government, we offset a number of state agencies by appropriating them funds that they don't have to come ask for, i.e. my friends at the Georgia State Patrol, whom I retired from. I mean, we give them up to around $5 million. That's money that they don't have to come ask for from the state. So in total, we only get roughly about $6.5 million.
Of the 21 you get from the feds.
And we get 21 from the Fed. So the buy-in from the state is roughly about 650,000, and we pull down 21 million from the state. So we appropriate not only state agencies, but private entities and nonprofit entities where we help those entities. So the only thing the CFR says that we've got to get the buy-in from the state is the $650,000. So that's roughly probably 4 to 5%, which we could, if the state would appropriate more money and so that we could educate, we could pull down probably 15 to 18% more instead of pulling only the 5% that we pull down. And over the last 2 years, we have reduced fatalities by 18%. So the programs that we put out, we're seeing these programs actually work, and that 18% equate to about 241 people, lives that has been saved. So
Was that a reduction in year over year, or what was that? Was that a reduction?
That was year of 24. We run a year behind collecting the data.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're trending in the right direction, and we keep advocating and going into places that we don't normally have a partnership with. So
was that, I just want to clarify, was that a year over year 18% reduction, or was that an 18% reduction in whatever estimates you guys had done as to what I hate to say it, but the expected fatalities would have
the
been?
expected fatalities is around 16%. So
Okay.
that was, it appears to be an anomaly, but coming out of the pandemic, nobody know where people were because speed was up triple digits.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're beginning to turn the tide, and we got to educate and do more and partner with more. I think roughly we got about 25 grantees throughout the state. So we're trying to build those numbers and reach the different people that we can. So we're just asking that we need to retain these 3 people is critical, and because the feds took those funding sources away, we just need, I'm asking for some help.
Is this person the only IT person that works out of the office?
Yes.
Okay.
And I did make a correction on some of those figures, because you can see that the governor's recommendation was the 161, but the real numbers would be more in the 137 range.
If you said this, I apologize, but how are those off by the 24,000? What was the difference there?
I think it's the fringe. You said the fringe rate, I was figuring at 69.14.
I'd be surprised if that was, because the fringe is only 2%, so I don't think it would be that much, but
The numbers that when we went to the House, and we really just had maybe 3 minutes to speak to them, and I don't really think you can explain this situation in 3 minutes. And
Sure.
so I feel like they were a little bit confused, and they didn't understand it. That's just my opinion. And then the wording that they put when they took it out was federal funding ceased. So I think they think that the whole federal funding thing is what they were focused on, when it did cease, but these positions are pretty much state state positions. They need to be under the P&A.
Sure. Any questions from the committee? All right, well, thank you all for explaining that. If you guys have any, if you can dig into the fringe piece for me, just shoot
I
me an
certainly
email,
will.
let me know if this number needs to adjust based on that or not, is what my question would be. But I think it'd be a pretty small
Thank you, sir.
reduction. Thank you all for being here this morning, bright and early. Next up is our cover man, the infamous one and only Commissioner. Oh, Chairman Burns, would you like to do the introduction?
No, I
please.
just acknowledge that Commissioner is the former Man of the Year. Is that not true, Mr. Chairman?
I believe that is
Fish
true.
wrapper. Fish wrapper.
Oh, man, no.
What year, was that for 24, Commissioner?
I don't recall.
I believe that's correct, Mr. Chairman.
So we have now lived 45 days without with a different man of the year?
With a different man, but still.
He could win it again.
Oh, let me turn you on there.
He could win it again. It could be like a simulcast.
Has there ever been a repeat man of the year?
This could be the year.
I'll suggest an over-under on that. I'll take the under.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
All right, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you all. And I want to go back. We didn't get to do joint appropes, and I had nothing to do with the snow. We just had a lot to do with trying to get rid of it, and I'll speak to that because we've had 2 snow events, and it costs money to get rid of that Connecticut confetti off our roadways. But I do want to take just a minute to go through, and more than a minute, in fact, to talk about our response to Hurricane Helene, certainly, but we can't forget Debbie, and obviously I want to thank the governor for putting dollars in our budget to try to dampen the cost of response, and I'll go through that in pretty great detail. And also want to just thank the governor for his leadership during these hurricanes, especially Helene, as impactful it was, not only for his direct engagement to the people, but also with GDOT supporting us to do our job and let our mission to be executed along with other many state agencies, including DNR and obviously GEMA and Georgia Forestry Commission. We had a true state, all hands in the state response for dealing with the immediate impact, but that impact still goes on today of many of you that have lived in the storm path. You may be a blue sky day here. Actually, I got here before the sun came up, so I'm not sure what the color of the sky is at the moment, but you know, people are still struggling to move through that. You know, it's often said that a picture's worth 1,000 words, so I've got a video that actually may describe better the impact and GDOT's response to that. And if somebody would hit play, thank you.
Steer Tropical Storm Debbie off towards the northeast. Our big story this morning, Helene. The storm is expected to have a really big impact on Georgia and metro Atlanta.
There's Milt lurking off that west coast of Florida.
Category 3 hurricane right along the panhandle of Florida here by the Big Bend area. We'll be watching for that to take place by Thursday evening. And that's where we can start to see some of the effects from the storm, especially over into South Georgia, and then making its way further off to the north.
All right, thank you for allowing me to show that, and I think it gives an overall good indication of GDOT's response. Before I move forward, I made a very fatal mistake in my opening comments. I failed to acknowledge our State Transportation Board Chair, Ann Purcell, who is with us this morning. So hopefully she'll let me keep my job the rest of the week. But certainly want to appreciate Ann for being here this morning. So let me just jump in and get through that. You know, as these hurricanes came on, especially Hurricane Helene, we usually have our northern districts pack their bags and head south to get close to a storm path in advance of a hurricane. But certainly not with Helene, as the storm was supposed to track right up through metro Atlanta. So we had everybody sort of stay home and bed down in places of safety, and especially in the coastal area, we had crews come in the night before, get into our stronger built buildings so they can hunker down right there with their equipment and be ready to respond. And of course, as you know, the hurricane track did not follow the way it was supposed to. But let me jump back into Debbie, just as a reminder. You know, a big event started August 3rd through the 20th of state of emergency. Very big impacts, saw all kind of record flooding. You can see on the slide where we hit 200 and 500-year storm events on many of the drainage basins and had major flooding. And in fact, we had some significant infrastructure that needed to be checked on. In fact, 120 bridges we had to inspect. And we can't inspect the bridges until the water recedes so that you can actually get in there. We had 9 teams doing those inspections over those sort of 20-something days, 30 days almost. And the biggest impact to infrastructure was State Route 169 in Tattnall County, where the bridge culvert simply washed away. And so very proudly to say that within 7 days, we had a new bridge design, and within 13 days, a contractor was actually starting work. So we were able to respond very quick. And in fact, Southern Creek Company had a bridge built within 2 months. So it just shows you if permitting's out of the way and there's all kind of things, you can move forward, you can move fast. So a tremendous impact. There's the cost, $3.4 million. We had to make repairs in US 341 where we lost slopes. State Route 144 down in Bryan County was closed for 6 days. 17 was closed for 8 days. That's water over the road on 144. You can just see how things were inundated. And this one really concerned me. We had people sitting 24/7 watching the water rise on I-16. That's not Alligator Alley, that is I-16 right in around Bullock and Counter County. So we were getting dangerously close for I-16 being flooded. So, you know, just those kind of things. Let me move into Hurricane Debbie, sort of the overall impact. You can see a tremendous amount of time and effort working around the clock again. One of the things I'm most proud of was that we helped counties, 12 counties in fact, Appling, Brantley, Bryan, Bullock, Effingham, Evans, Jeff Davis, Jenkins, Long, Pierce, Screven, and Tattnall. And in fact, in Jenkins County, we helped rebuild 150 roads. And I know, Chairman Burns, you know all about that. Y'all hit very hard in your district. So, but roughly about a $7 million cost for the Hurricane Debbie response. So moving into Helene, just again, sort of the overall impact of what our responsibility is debris removal first and foremost. I'm going to talk about traffic signals, the impacts of those. You saw those in the video. You saw the signs in the video, and then what the infrastructure is. Again, our job always is to get the road passable first, which means you can just get by. That doesn't mean all the lanes are open. And then we come back and try to cut the trees back to the edge lines. And then we come back and try to get the trees off the shoulders a little bit. And so that's always our effort to do those things. And then what we've been doing of late is basically taking all that debris and stacking it up. and so that it can be hauled off. And in fact, we contract with a specialty contractor. We have on-call for hurricane response. So we had a contractor called DRC, basically on-call, ready to go, and you see the specialized equipment. You saw it in the videos. I know Chairman Tillery in his county, had an armada of this kind of specialty equipment loading debris up. We do not have this type of equipment, so we use contracts for that, which also has allowed us to go back to do more of our day jobs instead of being 100% focused on debris removal. We're just in the stacking so that they can come in and efficiently move it out. And so, again, they're able to get the job done. Let me talk about traffic signals just for a moment. We didn't understand the impact, as big as this storm was with Helene, what an impact it'd have on traffic signals. Sort of on the onset of the storm, we had over close to 1,200 traffic signals from our computer systems. We had no idea if they even existed anymore. There was no communications, just we didn't know, fog of war, we didn't know what was going on with them. In fact, there were 719 traffic signals with some form of damage, from minor to just totally gone. And so, tremendous amount of work there. We employed all of our staff, and in fact, we had to borrow parts. We exhausted all our traffic signal inventory that we had as the state, and we actually borrowed some traffic signal parts from other counties, plus contracted for parts. And in fact, we had 10 contractors to help us that provided 30 bucket trucks. We had every bucket truck, every traffic signal crew we had in our state deployed from Valdosta to Augusta. And in fact, Augusta had some of the most horrific signal damage, with over 57 signals down in Augusta. So, and Augusta had 2 signal people. That's their crew, was 2 people. So we spent a lot of time working with in Augusta, Richmond, as well, the other cities. And we had no idea. In the video, it showed people working on traffic signals. We trained other employees that don't typically build traffic signals on how to put a traffic signal together, and then the crews could go spend their time in the field putting them up. So again, it was all hands on deck. The other thing was a big impact, signs. Here's a great example of a before and after of a big sign just gone. And we had so many signs gone. In fact, we've replaced over 16,000 signs, and we've repaired over 15,000. You saw in the video all these signs bent over, like in the slide there. So tremendous amount of sign work. And the one that always scares me is the red series signs, which are stop signs and yield signs and wrong way signs. Those are critical signs. And sometimes they were just gone. So we were messaging, if you see it used to be a stop sign there, still stop if it's gone. So sometimes we didn't even find our signs, but sometimes we did find them. And we found this stop sign, in fact. It just happened to be at the top of a power pole, like a ninja throwing star embedded into a wood pole. So luckily we found that. It was a little bit hard to recover, but if you notice on that sign, it's ripped from the post. I don't know where the post is, but it's ripped off. But just think about the force and the power and how dangerous that is to have something like that exact. And look, we didn't even take out a utility. Isn't that great? So, almost. But that's the kind of things you see. Again, for infrastructure, we had to inspect, in totality, about 275 bridges due to these storms. We had significant infrastructure damage. In fact, we had about 10 state routes, and this is in Gwinnett County, a very long way from the storm, not even in the path, but you had such intense rainfalls, we had a lot of washouts. This is US 341 in Telfair County, again, a lot of washouts. And so we had those things going on all over the state. So sort of summing up, Helene, over 2,100 employees, plus contractors, again, still working, over 251,000 hours. And again, very similar to Debbie, we had 71 requests and worked on over 500 roads, that are not state routes. One of the things that I was very proud of our crews for was we started reaching out to local EMA directors before they even knew what they had. Everybody was in such a state of impact that, it's hard to know what you even have. So we started reaching out to cities and EMA directors to say, what's your major city roads that are not state routes that you need help with? And we tried to help where we could. Today, our debris removal numbers are 3.7 million cubic yards. And that number continues to grow. We think we'll be doing debris removal through March, if not into April. So to give you some perspective, if you had a football field and you stacked the debris up, it would exceed the height of the Empire State Building. And I'll tell you that number because it's a big number, but it probably pales in comparison to counties, the totality of the counties, because they have much more a bigger roadway network than the state system does. So counties certainly have a big impact. At the maximum, we had 449 dump trucks hauling and debris trucks. We've got 41 debris sites across the state, and we estimate the damage, the cost of this for infrastructure and contracting and things outside of our just pure labor is approaching $200 million. And so you'll see that number again, and I'll tell you that the 2 winter storms that we had, the last one, it was huge coverage. I didn't know we would be plowing snow in Savannah for a week, or really about 5 to 6 days. The total cost of those 2 storms has been about $23 million. So just to give you some perspective. So I knew that was a focus again from joint approach. We didn't have that opportunity, but I wanted to just lay out that. I know that was a focus of the amended budget. So just to give you some perspective of GDOT's work in that. Let me jump ahead now and say thank you. A big thank you for last year in the amended 24 budget. You can see how the state general fund money was applied among these 5 categories: a big bump in airport aid. The local roads administration, $250 million to cities and counties. I have had 0 complaints from any city of the county about those dollars. And in fact, we got 90% of those dollars out the door by July. From joint appropriations, governor signing the budget, from the amended budget to the governor signed it, those dollars were deployed quickly. $500 million in freight from last year, $593 million in capital construction, and $50 million in capital maintenance. So big thank you for that. So what do those dollars do? I want to commend Janine Miller and her team in planning for taking a look at, out of the capital maintenance and the freight budget, we looked at 17 projects that totaled about $900 million that we're now advancing. And you can see the benefit, the cost, or the ROI, if you will, of what those really do. So for $900 million, we're going to have over $1 billion of cost savings due to less vehicle delay and vehicle cost. That's by 2035, and if you extrapolate that out to 2050, it's a $4.3 billion cost savings from reductions in delay and crashes. But if you see the sort of the subset on the left, within 2 miles of those 17 projects, you can see how many jobs are affected. 61,000 of really good jobs, and then 166,000 of service jobs. And then sort of the bottom line is, by moving things ahead, we don't pay higher inflated cost in the future. And we did a very conservative sort of 2% inflationary savings up to about 10%. So somewhere we save between $75 and $330 million by advancing these projects rather than them sitting out in the future some year. So that just shows you the power. And those are low costs. Those are not the sort of the experience costs that we see. Because when I show you this, when we look back to fiscal year 21, you can see what kind of cost increases we've had with super high inflation. Asphalt resurfacing's up about 67%. Urban widening, 117%. I know Chairman Dolezal, you got a lot of that up in your district on State Route 9 and State Route 20 in those areas. Rural widening, 124%. So we've seen tremendous. And then our favorites, everybody on this committee loves roundabouts. I know you talk about how much you love them. And so 93% increase in roundabouts. Bridge costs, 64%. And I had a question. Somebody asked, well, what's driving that? Is it because we put this additional money into the program? And the answer to that is no. It's not driven by us putting more money in. In fact, we did the fewest bid number of projects that we've done in about 5 or 6 years at an all-time high in cost last year. So we were over $2 billion of projects bid, but the project count was less, the fewest numbers in about 5 years. I just came back from a meeting last week with all state DOTs. Everybody's experienced this around the nation. This is not unique to Georgia because we're making continued investment. But you can see the raw products in that table there, the components that drive these costs. And so do those numbers turn around and come back? I'm not an economist. I play one from time to time at work, and my answer is probably not greatly. We'll see what happens in the future. All right. So that's the preamble to get to what's important, the amended 25 budget.
Where do you see us being able to cut cost? Is it in regulation or studies or anything to help us offset the increases in the asphalt and the hard cost?
So I'm very encouraged. Met Secretary Duffy last week while in Washington. And very encouraged in the ability to hopefully streamline project delivery. Just those simple numbers I gave of just increased cost with inflation, if we can deliver quicker, then hopefully that saves us money. These other commodities are driven by energy, driven by steel cost, and labor. I mean, those are the big cost drivers of construction commodities. Barrel of oil, labor, steel prices have a big impact. So we'll see where those happen.
To follow up, Mr. Chairman, I remember during the first Trump administration, you were with the president at UPS, and y'all had that where all those regulations went up to the ceiling, and then we cut them down to about the size of here. I look forward to that again. I think that's going to happen. I also hear the administration may block grant a lot of money back without any federal regulations so that we can get shovels in the dirt a lot quicker. I don't know what your conversations were on that, but I've been told that by the
that is a big push now, is to do some kind of de minimis federal funding so it doesn't have the federal strings throughout. So if there's some dollar threshold, it was very sort of similar through the ARPA and CARES Act, had some of those provisions. So maybe that's something that can go forward. Again, we're going to do our environmental stewardship to take care of Georgia. We're not going to do anything that harms the environment. In fact, we try to enhance it. So we'll see where that goes, but very encouraged by that, and that's something we certainly support. So back in the budget table here, you can see $244 million recognized for excise. That's a combination of fulfilling when the gas tax was suspended from the governor, and also just an adjustment in collections numbers. And then the big number you can see is the add of $1.032 billion. And I'll get into where those dollars go. That is state general fund money. So we're very, very appreciative to the governor for recommending that in our budget, and I'll highlight that. This next slide is always a great slide just to show you where the money goes, and from sort of ranked from high to low. Capital projects consist of capital maintenance and capital construction, so those are $1.4 billion out the door. Routine maintenance, again, is taking care of what we have, and of course we contract for most of our maintenance work. $734 million, 19% of the budget. The freight program, again, $530 million recognized out of the state general funds for the freight program. Very excited to have that, again, to continue our freight work. LMIG and local roads admin, again, money to local governments now, all $498, almost $499 million out to our cities and counties by formula, so they know exactly what they're going to have there. And then you can just see general operations, which I note is under 8%, and general ops actually has many programs, admin, data collections, that's federal reporting we have to do, the planning divisions in that, our program delivery, so the people that actually deliver the projects are in that, and then traffic management's in that, so at 8%. And then you can see on down the line. So let me go very quickly and get into the amended 25 budget per se. And we put this on a table, so it's probably a little easier to track. And just call your attention, the programs down the left side, we do pay attention to fund source, the second column down, in the base, and then what the change is. So let me just highlight a couple of the important ones circled. And the first one is airport aid. The House added $7.5 million to the base And those $7.5 million came out of payments to CERTA that we'll show at the end, and then Janine will talk about that when she does her CERTA presentation. So that was, again, $7.5 million added to the base of 26.3. The next big add is in the capital construction number. 12 million of that was from motor fuel. 98 million was recognized as to make up for the suspension of the gas tax during the hurricanes. And then 2.4 million of that was something that was some trapped motor fuel from a previous program we couldn't use, and so we freed that up and got that into the capital, into capital construction budget. Next, highlighted in the circle is $100 million add in capital maintenance, and that is consist of excise. And again, capital maintenance is repaving, rehabilitating roads and bridges. So I'll just show you that. Again, one of the important adds there is that we're paving about 40% of the roads with the same amount of money we were about 3 to 4 years ago. So resurfacing costs, you saw that 60% cost of increase in resurfacing.
You do have a question here. Senator again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of years ago, against my wishes, we put heavier trucks on the road without getting anything for it. I want to stop the ones that are grotesquely overweight, that are above 95,000 pounds. That's going to come back up. Sunshine, that went out this year, so we'll get to discuss it this year. Tell me, is there any way that you have to track those heavier weights, that the destruction that they do on the road system, and how that costs?
Well, not at this point. We have partnered with UGA to do some research to try to understand what are the weights we're actually seeing out on the roadways. But we don't have that work done yet. I think that's something to try to understand, is what are those weights actually being hauled.
When you were in school, they taught you about failure on whatever you were testing, whatever material. I'm trying to get us to look at how do we stop the ones that are over 95,000 pounds, because that's the ones that are killing our roads. It's kind of like the straw that broke the camel back. So anything you can help me with on that would be great.
Yes, sir. We hope to have some good data.
Senator Halpern on 3.
Good morning. Just a question, because I was thinking about some of the increasing costs, and I'm wondering how much of a differential is there for some of the new, I'll call them technologies, but aren't there new kind of road surface aggregates that are coming more and more online that, because they're in the earlier stages, may cost more than they will in the future? I'm just wondering how much is what you're using to pave and resurface roads changing over time?
Yeah, so there's a lot of materials out there that are trying to be innovative and look at what may be different sources. We still stay with traditional aggregates, and it's sort of like your mom's or your grandmom's recipe for the pound cake. You just don't really like to deviate too much from it because it's tried and true. But we do a lot of work to experiment. But those things are not proven and not necessarily cost effective yet. It may be in the future, but there's a lot of things that can be done.
I got a question for Senator Anderson.
Commissioner, I've met with you and more so your team several times around the fencing on I-20. I asked for a budget for Conyers and I know you say it's in here somewhere, but I want it specifically for 2 cities, Conyers and Stonecrest, please, and thank you.
Okay, we'll make a note of that. All right. Let me jump over to the next slide. Slide 28, if you're following along. Just to highlight again, the increase in the local maintenance improvement grant funding increased by $24.4 million, which is a reflection of being 10% of the local maintenance, 10% of the excise, rather. So that's an adjustment there. And of course, out of the state general fund money, $250 million again to cities and counties with no matching requirement, different than the LMIG. which either has a 70% or a 90% match, depending on if you were a original T-Splosh county or not. Just down in Ports and Waterways, one that doesn't get much attention, smaller budget item, but an important one for the maintenance dredging of the Savannah River. We, as DOT, own a lot of acreage, and we have the areas that basically the dredge material goes and settles out, so we have to work with the Corps of Engineers to raise the dikes so that as they dredge more material, we raise the impoundment area. So that's what that amount is for. In a $1.69 million ad in program delivery. In just a few minutes ago, I told you, program delivery is the budget program where people deliver the projects. We've got over $1 billion in amended 24. We've got $530 million added in freight this year. So you can see that we've got to have resources to deliver more projects, which is very welcome, and appreciate that. Let me flip over to slide.
Chairman Burns.
Just a real quick question. First of all, thank you to GDOT as you went through both Debbie and Helene. What a tremendous support GDOT was to Georgia. So first, thank you for that.
Yes,
I want to just ask a quick question about the LMIG, the local roads funds, the $250 million out of the general fund.
Yes, sir.
What would that give locals the opportunity to do? Is this in any way related to the hurricane damage, or is this routine development of local infrastructure?
So predominantly it's for normal infrastructure, but it can be used for any roadway purpose. So if somebody wanted to replace pipes and upsize pipes that were damaged, they certainly can use those dollars for that purpose. What the counties and cities do is basically send us a list of saying, here are the project types we're going to do. We're just going to make sure they meet muster, and then we actually send them the money in advance of the work, and then we just follow up on the backside to make sure the work's done. So cities and counties have full flexibility on how to use that as long as it's for the intended transportation purpose. So they could do rehabilitation work and try to do things like that hadn't always been covered.
My concern is there are going to be some communities that need those dollars to rebuild
Right.
Destroyed infrastructure, and so they will not have the opportunity to do the normal LMIG type projects.
Sort of takes away from their normal LMIG, right.
But we appreciate that. Thank you.
And I don't have the number in front of me. I can get back to you. We've tried to help cities and counties in those situations as well, with pipes washing out and things where it wasn't FEMA eligible or didn't wait on FEMA. FEMA takes a while. There's been some pretty good quick release money for debris, but usually the hard infrastructure takes longer to get reimbursed. So we've tried to help that, and we've done that to the tune of many millions of dollars to try to help city, local governments.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Let me see. Just going to jump over on slide 29, and just an ad in our rail program. $5 million is added to the base out of state general funds, with the intent to continue to work on Georgia DOT's owned short line rails, to get them up to the Class 2 standards. Predominantly, our need is continue to work on bridges and trestles to make sure they're strong enough to hold up the trains that they can go at the Class 2 standard, which is only about 25 miles an hour. But so that was an ad from the House. That did come from the GTIB, payments to CERTA. Routine maintenance is next, a $5.4 million ad for our contracting material costs. Just like we talked about in construction, it's the same for routine maintenance. But the big ad you'll see there is the $200 million in state general funds to deal with the hurricane. And so that was the sort of the number I gave you for what the hurricane impact was approximately $200 million. So that was the add to routine maintenance budget. Traffic management had a smaller increase. I do want to highlight because we did have a few questions that we're supposed to answer at joint appropriations, and this is dealing with one is how do you make sure you ensure good customer service? And so we have the need to use consultant resources to help us tackle our permitting process. Again, we want good customer service. This specifically deals with commercial driveways or access permits. As development happens throughout the state, when it interfaces with a state route, we have to review plans, make sure things are proper, and then actually approve a permit for a developer to access the state route. About 4 years ago, we were doing 625 permits a year, but due to Georgia's strong economy, last fiscal year we did 950 permits in a year. Our target review time, turnaround time, is 45 days. So 4 years ago, we were at 42 days from start to finish, from somebody coming in to issuing a permit. Last year, unfortunately, we're at 92 days. So we need to bring on consultant resources so that we can provide better customer service. That's a function of economy, I think, to see how our commercial driveway permits have increased from 625 to 950. And if those numbers go back down, again, with consultant resources, we can send people back. You know, it's just not full-time staff, so it gives us the ability to be responsive. Let me slide over to the last slide here, summary. Is our freight, I mentioned just a minute ago, with $530 million of state general funds to go to that new freight program that was established under HB 617 just a few years ago. You know, we talked about that in your Transportation Committee, and so this goes for funding, again, to take on our freight needs of a very growing Georgia. And lastly, you can see payments to CERTA, $37.5 million. Janine Miller can speak to that as she does her budget presentation. But as I noted, there was $7.5 million that went to airport aid from the House out of that pot, and $5 million to our rail program. So, Mr. Chairman, that's the very lengthy budget report.
Thank you, Chairman Tillery. Before you start your comments, I do should have said this at the beginning of the meeting, but we obviously missed our joint appropriations hearings, and there's a lot of heavy lifting that's being done in these subcommittees. And Chairman Tillery, I think, was the first person probably in the building today, was already at one of those, and I know your workload increases pretty significantly, so I want to thank you for joining us today and for the work that you're doing on the budget.
I feel all the love. It's close to Valentine's Day. Thank you, Chairman Dolezal. Thank you, Commissioner. I got a quick question. On the $200 million that you're expecting in storm damage, is any of that reimbursable by the feds from FEMA?
It should be. And probably up to 75% of it or more, maybe some up to 90. There's different timelines, and I can look back. Our challenge has been, Chairman, is the timing of getting those dollars. We've had reimbursements from FEMA as quick as 12 months to 18 months, but sometimes over 2 years. As quick as.
Have you had any payments back yet?
We have not.
Okay.
And that is a little bit of a timing issue. Again, is we have applied. We have not been granted approval yet, and we will still do that. Should we get some form of payment back between now and the amended budget, that will be something important for us to come back to you and talk to you about how much that was, but it's all a timing issue. As of right now, we cannot finish this budget year in our routine maintenance activities with these impacts that we're absorbed. In fact, the debris cleanup, we've already outlaid over $100 million already out the door out of our routine maintenance budget for debris pickup. We do not have that kind of contingency built in our budget.
Your comments also bring up a worry. If our state's waiting 12 to 18 months on reimbursement, are the local governments having to wait that long as well?
I heard from GEMA that, especially on debris cleanup, that there's been quick release money and that many counties have got FEMA reimbursement. I can't speak to the number, but because I was complaining and lamenting about how long it's taking us, and I was told that several counties have got that. And I'll tell you, one of the things that concerned me the most was that during the storm, I thought we may have to help cities and counties ourselves do that debris cleanup. And of course, FEMA made the Corps of Engineers available to do that cleanup directly. So some counties, I don't know how many, are using the Corps of Engineers through FEMA directly, so they're not incurring direct cost. But many counties have incurred cost and or have got some reimbursement. I don't have GMA would best know that number.
But you don't know if the state's eligible for the advanced payback or the quickened payback that you've heard?
We think we are. It's just a
Okay.
matter of,
When it
again,
hits.
we've submitted 3 times, I believe.
Thank you.
Chairman, Chairman Beach on 4.
We're tight for time, but I just want to thank you for all your work on hurricanes and the disaster. Y'all did a great job. You make us proud when you work with GMA and the power companies and so on. The one comment I have, you've heard me say a lot of times, there's a direct correlation between infrastructure investment and economic development and jobs. And those 61,000 jobs you talked about is because of the infrastructure investment. I just want to talk to you a little bit about our general aviation airports. I'm a big believer in investing in those. I've seen what's happened in Ball Ground in Cherokee County. You look at a 5-mile radius from that airport and the jobs that have been created. We've extended the runway, we've widened the runway, we've added 4 new hangars, and the investment that airport authority's made has paid off a lot. So I'm a big believer in that we should look at some of these general aviation airports around, and I think it would strengthen rural Georgia and some areas around these airports.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll say this, I missed it when I went by it on the payments to CERTA. The House did put in a stipulation that $7.5 million of the GTIB amount should be used for a hangar loan program. And we did a study last year, identified that today there's 1,400 planes that don't have a home that could use a hangar. And so that was that the House put that in, and I don't want to take her, but talk through her budget at CERTA, but in payments to CERTA, the House did acknowledge out of the remaining balance for GTIB, $7.5 million should be for a loan program for hangars. Hangars are tough to be federally eligible. Your airport has to be basically 100% compliant in all safety items before you can get federal eligibility, and we've always said we're putting our first state dollars in for safety of airports before we would start investing in hangars, which have the opportunity to produce income.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, she's going to be wearing her CERTA hat today, I think, as the Executive Director, Janine Miller.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a lot of material that I'm going to be judicious with your time and cut some of it, but I do want to start with letting you know that I've been wearing this color since about 6:30 p.m. last night.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Is there a?
That's why I'm late.
Is that due to the number of Georgia Bulldogs on the Philadelphia?
My grandfather grew up in Philadelphia.
Okay.
I have no ties to Kansas City. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
So, wanted to just briefly give an orientation. There are several agencies that many of you are aware of that are on my business cards, and there are 2 of them. But I just wanted to make sure all understood how these all work together and knit together. Of course, it all is based in the Constitution. The governor is the primary appointee of many of these agencies. Greta, the CERTA board, 2 of which, of course, the governor chairs the CERTA board, and the OPB director is also on the CERTA board, as well as appointees from the General Assembly. Same of ATL. There are 14 of the 15 members of the ATL board are appointed by the General Assembly. And of course, GDOT as Director of Planning, I work hand in glove with the Commissioner and his team to do the planning work there. So wanted to make sure that was understood how these all knit together. Just briefly, our express lanes on 3 corridors in Metro Atlanta are doing well, which has got us at a 30 million trip level last year. We're providing reliable trips throughout these congested corridors and very proud of the work that we do there. Talk about the budget. This would be an enhancement to the budget. That is what is shown here. That is in section 47 of the House budget recommendation tracking sheet 364.1. The governor's original budget was a $60 million plus up for GTIB, and the House's recommendation is $37.5 million. As the commissioner said, $7.5 million would be for airports. I want to call your attention to that very last line there in that blue box. For airport projects not federally eligible, I'm working with the commissioner's team on the language for that to make sure that we're going to be able to fit the bill to meet the moment of the demand that's there for the hangars. And I don't want to preclude that, which in my initial research, this may preclude that. So we're working on that language for hangars. I want to talk just about GTIB for a moment. The website is available there with that QR code, which you can also find on Google. Since we kicked off the bank in 2010, there have been $216 million of awards to 153 projects, and we're able to fund about a little over around a half of the applications that come in. But every application that comes in, we usually give them a haircut, so to speak, because of the funds that are available. But for a combined project value of $1.1 billion, we get about 24 applications a year. Highlighted here is a $1.5 million grant to Bullitt County for interstate access for an industrial area. $1 million grant to Gwinnett Place Community Improvement District, which are excellent organizations that are well in touch with their businesses and the growth that they're looking for in their area. And Pike County, we gave a $6 million grant loan combination. That was a 10-year loan, 2.6% interest rate, so it's a very low interest rate, and Pike County is able to deliver this repaving faster by 6 years as a result of the grant loan combination. One data point that's not here, but that's an important one I want to call your attention to. In the past 2 years, applications that have come in that indicate how local governments are able to match and bring contributions to their project. And we did an analysis by Metro Atlanta versus other parts of the state. In Metro Atlanta, applicants are able to fund 72% of their project costs. Other parts of the state are only able to fund 42% of their project cost. So this is an important program for rural areas. And as you can see here, 3 years, 3 bars on the left are the years behind us that we have awarded funds to, and the fiscal 25 is on the far right. That red dashed line is an average of the loan amounts that's available every year. So we are oversubscribed, as most programs are, but we know that these are investments in our communities, in our economies, and in our future. This is a rundown of the 5 applications we were able to fund last year, nearly $17 million, 2 in rural areas and 3 in Metro Atlanta. As an example, the Locust Grove-Peaksville connector provides an important relief for State Route 42. I'm not sure how many of you have had the opportunity to tour our local roads in Henry County when I-75 is shut down or heavily blocked, but this is a road that is an alternate when I-75 congestion is unbearable. This connector is going to help relieve a lot of that burden there in that local area. On State Route 42 in this area, there's 25,000 vehicles a day that use this. So this is going to be important for local businesses and flow through the area. And an example of a rural project is the Lily Creek Road project. It connects 49 to 96 in Peach County. And why this is important is not shown on the map, but it is critical. On the east side of this yellow line is workforce housing for the mega site that is on the west side of this. This is going to provide access for workers to a mega site facility whenever that is secured by the Department of Economic Development. And then lastly, wanted to make sure it's known how much we're coordinating to help our rural areas. There's a federal program called Transportation Alternatives. Bipartisan infrastructure law requires that Georgia match $11 million. This is all of Georgia. It's really local governments that are burdened with the match of $11 million for these transportation alternative programs. And we have a lot of inability in local areas under a population of 5,000 to match this $11 million a year. So the CERTA board enacted a policy last year that enables the CERTA director to allocate up to $2 million to help those rural areas match that local requirement. So this year we're going to award $1.7 million of the GTIB dollars to help those rural communities. These are projects that enhance sidewalks, people's ability to have a pedestrian connection to businesses, and support rural, local communities. And that concludes my GTIB presentation. In the interest of time, I can save the ATL portion until our fiscal 26 hearing, if you'd like. But happy to speak about it if you'd like to, Chairman.
Are there any questions on Chairman Tillery, 11?
Thank you, Janine. Thank you for your work. You mentioned the GTIB loans and grants. If you took your total number of projects, what would be the total, if you were able to grant them all? How many? Tell me the dollar that wasn't granted. I guess that's the easiest way to ask the question.
Let's go back, and of course it varies year by year. Roughly 50 million.
50? So I'm reading it on. Help me on what I'm reading on your slide. I'm on FY25?
FY20, these are prior years, so
Okay.
22, 23, 24, 24 have been awarded. 25 are applications that are in. We're reviewing those right now.
And your red line is your cut line, essentially.
Exactly.
Okay.
We've been working a lot the past couple of years to do more loans and loan grant combos to make sure that there's that skin in the game where possible, but we do give special consideration for rural areas that have less financial wherewithal.
So you had 64 million in applications this year, and your funding is going to be roughly about 18 to 19? Is that, okay.
The appropriation's about 15, and then we're getting some loan repayments coming back in that we
That you
feed back into
reimburse.
the program.
Okay.
Senator Ginn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two things. One of them, the technology in reference to our illustrious chairman. He's always on top of things. When you get in the hot lanes, you can't do it when you're moving, and there's 3 people in the car. Somebody else can operate the phone to say, hey, we're doing this. What do we got to do to keep technology moving forward so that they can do the hot lane instead of pre-planning? Just let somebody else in the car run the app.
That's exactly right. For road safety, especially considering that the law in Georgia is to not allow mobile phone use while you're driving the car. Yes, the phone can be handed to another non-driver occupant in the car to declare, yes, there are 3 people in this vehicle. But we have to work on the technology on that to make sure, because we want to follow the law and still enable that, is what I'm hearing. I need to check with our staff on that.
And in MARTOC, we've been asked to push for these BRT, to change the state law on it. I want to know your thoughts, because what I'm seeing is they're going to close off a lane for a bus to go by every 10 minutes. And I'd love to hear, how that makes any sense at all.
I'll have to study those departures, or headways as they're called, how frequent those are, and look into that a little bit more. I'm not the traffic engineer, and I do defer to the traffic engineers, especially on safety.
That's what they
criteria.
testified at a MARTOC committee meeting.
Okay.
And I'm like, there ain't no way in the world I would do that.
Just to clarify.
Leader Gooch.
Those are for city streets. They're not for state routes, correct?
They're wanting to change the law to allow this to happen on state routes. And to me, I told them, I said, you people are crazy. He said, you're going to have a bus go by every 10 minutes, and I'm sitting over here stuck in traffic with the lane that's closed off just to buses, and you're going to have one every 10 minutes? That's what their testimony was this past year. And I
guess
have a problem with
We'll
that.
get a chance to see that bill in your committee, won't we?
Oh.
If it gets over here.
We up to the Committee on Assignments.
I think so.
Chairman
Thank you.
Burns, grab number 9 there if you don't mind.
I apologize for following up on Senator Ginn's comments. Do we do traffic studies of bicycle lanes?
If we do traffic studies of bicycle lanes, they would not happen in my office. That would be part of the commissioner's
I
work.
think
but
that's more a local issue.
It's more, definitely
It's
more
really
local.
more of a local issue. I realize that. I just thought I would throw that on the table because if we're talking about bus traffic, and I just acknowledge the fact that we lose lanes to no traffic. How's that? Just a comment.
You're not wrong. Any other questions?
Thankfully, Senator Burns, Mr. Chair, I am not an engineer, and GDOT has thousands of them, and I do defer to the engineers.
But you did go to trade school.
I did go to North Avenue Trade School.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Ms. Miller, and members of the committee. Thank you for getting here early and for diving into this work. And we will see y'all soon.